Good afternoon and welcome to the Tuesday, November 12th meeting of the Watershed Committee. We have members of the committee here as well as staff this evening. First item of business is the call to order. Second, we've actually got two sets of minutes. We've got going all the way back to March 5th in the last year, or earlier this year, and then as well as the September meeting minutes as well. I don't know if anybody has any comments, concerns about past minutes. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Approved? Okay. So jumping right into discussion items. So one of our big projects that is wrapping up and wanted to provide a status update to the committee and the public is the Allens Creek Stream Restoration Project. So as Mike is pulling up on the screen now, we had some great drone shots from Barton LaJudas provided just at the beginning of this month or end of last month.
Yep, November 1st.
November 1st, yeah. So they went out and did some final stream shots with the drone. So this is something that we as a committee walked back in September as our tour. At that time, they were still working on in-stream items, working on finalizing that, and then just thinking about doing stream side restoration along the bank. So as you can see, Mike, if you want to stop on this photo right here, looking at this photo on the left side, you can just see Mike's highlighting the portion of the wall that was taken down. He's highlighting the mud sill at the bottom, and then you can see that wall. So as this group remembers, that was a hard, fast concrete wall that went way out into the middle of the creek and was restricting flow. So in working with the homeowner, we negotiated with them to remove that wall, remove the patio, the shuffleboard court that was there before, where Mike's highlighting that's gone, and then lower that grade down at the end. So we've got some tree restoration to do, but you can see it's a much more open pattern for the floodplain now, where before it was a hard concrete wall that came up to that end, really restricted that corner and was creating a lot of the velocity issues because the restricted capacity of the stream downstream from that. So this is, a great photo that kind of shows how that was increased and widened out, and then, re-engaging the floodplain back that's been lost, throughout the years. But a little hard to see with leaf cover, but you can see it's got erosion control blankets on the side. So as it finished in October, November, put the erosion control blankets on, seeded underneath that. So we've got some wildflower seed mix on the non-neighbor side. And then he's going back with willow pond live stakes to put in to kind of stabilize that bank as well. So the erosion control fabric is, throughout along that until the roots and vegetation can take hold. But then, following up with willow stakes, and I think those are going in late November, December.
That's correct. Yeah.
Being put in, and then we've got trees to replant, so we can do the deciduous trees, some of them this fall. So we'd still like to get those in. Anybody that wants an evergreen, it's kind of too late in the season for evergreens, so that'll roll over to be a spring, planting into next year for that. But it's ended up being a great project. You can see here, Mike wants to highlight a mud sill. So that's an area that creates a habitat for fish and animals to kind of be under that. So it kind of creates a deep pool area. I think Mike's also highlighting a rock vein across there, and you can see where that holds the grade across, and then also kind of creates a, actually I think that's a riffle through there, kind of showing the rocks that, loses some grade. There's a rock vein across, so that's kind of a hardened rock structure that's kind of a V pointed upstream. So as Mike highlights to the left, you can see the rocks that kind of extend out, so it channelizes the flow back into the middle. So as you get a higher flow, it keeps pushing the flow back to the center of the stream rather than erosion in there. You can see the mud sills, the logs just right there. And one spot, please don't leave this picture, to the right, you can look at those couple of, scrawny little trees there. That was the edge of their property, and the erosion went right up to those, and we've stood there before and seen that that's where the erosion went and dropped off, so you can see how much yard they're going to have back and back to where it originally was. So we don't have the original photos, but this is where it kind of came down that lower end, and you could see where the stream was splitting. Some of the stream was on the hillside. It had left a deposit in the middle, so it had kind of created a little deposition delta in the middle, and then the stream was eroding back, and those trees were right at the edge of that, and those trees were just holding on. So, for residents, you can see, the property that they've lost, they've, kind of gained back, and then created more of a tapered edge, rather than a lot of them had put in, a hard edge or riprap or gabion baskets or other different forms and methods through the years that they've tried to do their own, where this is now a comprehensive restoration of it. So I know the contractor had said that he'd seen the fish come back, so we got out of the stream in time. The fish are back and running. I believe most of the residents are happy with the project, and obviously it'll take our first storm event to kind of see how it really flows and functions. And then I know the contractor's, planning on coming back in the spring if there's areas that need to be, adjusted or things revised to, readjust that. But I know we had a couple of storm events, which actually was good. He had put things in the stream and watched how it functioned and flowed, and then would go back in and then could readjust the rocks to make sure that it was, functioning as it should. So we had a good contractor on this project. Came in exactly on, actually under budget, but actually on contract. So it was I think, a successful project overall. And this one you can kind of see from the distance, the manufactured home up above. It's kind of hard to see elevation. So those are the parks off of Linden Avenue that sit up above. And then it's kind of hard to see that grade that drops down in. And then, the neighborhoods down below and the creek that kind of runs along that edge. So I thought it was nice they provided this at the end of the job to kind of show
That's
that
awesome.
drone shots through that and can kind of capture that whole flow. And then here's one kind of at, grade level in the backyard and showing the trees, were preserved as much as possible. I know we had told the neighbors initially it could possibly be, depending on the contractor, get it set up both ways. They could build an actual haul road in their backyard on the lawn side or the house side, and many of the trees would have to go away. Not our first choice. And then thankfully this contractor was comfortable working in the stream. He actually, bypassed, put a pump in, bypassed the entire project, built a haul road down the middle of the creek, utilized that, still had some trees to be removed. We will be replacing those in one for one, with those neighbors. But you can see it didn't clear cut the entire neighborhood, which would have been, much more, damaging environmentally. But depending on the contractor, depending on how it went, we kind of left the means and methods up to the contractor, so we couldn't dictate, they had to be in stream, and if we had an extreme amount of water this summer, even this contractor said, if the pump can't handle it, I may have to work from the shore side. So we definitely had challenges or potential challenges, but I say we had the right contractor for this, and it worked out to be a good project. Questions, comments?
It looks great, Mark. I want to commend you. Do I need a button here or anything?
No, just stick your face up by the microphone.
I wasn't sure. No, it looks great. I think the contractor did a fantastic job, and I think that went relatively smooth. I mean, I live in the neighborhood. I've heard nothing from the neighbors, so I'm assuming everybody's somewhat
good.
happy. Just the one question I have is, you said the contractor's going to come back and do some maintenance in the spring because you're going to see how. Do we anticipate there's going to be maintenance through this thing forever? I know it's not supposed to be that way.
Yeah, no, we don't expect it. Obviously, things were put in natural methods and everything else, so we're hoping once we're done, we're out. But he's coming back if we do get settlements, between now and then, or have areas that, with the mud sills, you may get a little settlement over those. He's got to do some touch-ups with that. But we're hoping, turn this back over to the residents and the homeowners, and, we'll plant the trees back that we had taken out. I'm sure they're going to want to do other landscaping to kind of restore their backyards to what it was. And as we've all walked it, it's a beautiful space. It's not public. It is private areas, but being a water of the U.S., that's the impetus for us to have the project itself, is we could work from the water and do that part. And then the neighbors have, kindly worked with us on the project. And
No, it turned out great.
yeah.
I have nothing but praise on it. It's a
And
great project.
Amy's done a nice job of communicating, sent off an email every Friday saying, here's what's going on, here's the status, here's what's the plan for next week. And, I think that did a lot to kind of alleviate fears as he kind of came and went. And, it was over a half a mile of project, so it may not be in your backyard at that day or that time or that week. It was hard for you to see what was really going on if they were a half mile upstream or downstream from you, and going, hey, they went by my house and you left it like this, are you coming back? And going, well, he's kind of got to work his way through. And up and back and then do restoration on the way back out. And then, it worked out well with the Corning Group. They used their property for access off of Linden Tech. That got us into the property. And then he was leaving them a nice area. They seemed happy, and I don't think we had a photo of that in this group. They had extra fill material that came out of the creek, so he created more of a pad area for them there and was going to put some rocks in that they could go down there in their lunch hour and walk down from the office space up above, sit on a rock or, a little bench area, and then look at the trees, look at the creek. So hopefully that left them, a nice space at the end of the project for, working with us and, allowing access through their property and everything else, that hopefully they're left better off than what they were originally as well.
Mark, you mentioned the mud sills where small, amphibians and fish can sort of kind of be safe and kind of hide out, that are kind of cut into the bank, below the bank to protect them. But I'm not sure that everybody on our audience of tens of thousands of people listening today know how important those streams are in terms of the type of fish and stuff that we have in there. Do you want to mention a little
Sure.
bit about that?
Yeah, so obviously this was a project that many years in the making. I've been involved with it since 2012 was when it kind of started. We did an initial study on the stream, worked closely with the Army Corps and DEC throughout. So this wasn't just something the town took on. We're doing a major reconstruction project. But yeah, creating those habitats and, making it a natural, using natural methods. We used root wads, so actually roots of trees to help, curve things around the corner. The mud sills are logs kind of placed horizontally with posts driven back into the slope to hold the slope, but creates a space underneath for the habitat for the fish, the fisheries to happen underneath there. As Mike's pulling up on the screen, you can kind of see that header log is from what you can see from the stream side, but there's an empty space underneath that. So basically almost like an overhang on a deck, that those posts go back into that slope, hold the slope in place, and then there's posts on the corner. So then under that, there's habitat so the fish can hide under that, have, the fisheries under there, and then we do get trout coming up through here. We do get salmon coming up through here, so it is a major fishing area. So again, the coordination between the DEC and Army Corps, time of year. So I guess is kind of wrapping up the project. We had between June 15th and October 15th to be in the stream. So we're out of fish migration season, all of that. So we had a very tight time frame to get that in, get the infrastructure established, get out of the stream, and then he's been doing the stream side, restoration with the erosion control blankets and the other stuff outside of the stream after the October 15th time frame. So it was very tight to be in there, so we're not impacting, the fish in that time frame. But yeah, it was, well coordinated with the DEC and Army Corps to make sure we do establish the habitat, and part of that is creating the deep pools and some of the other elements that are in it to make it, back to recreate nature the best we can.
Great, thank you.
Will the town of Brighton be tying in to where we was started? Or don't you have any word from them?
The town of Brighton offered a letter of support, but they had no interest in joining us in this project. So
Do they have the same problem upstream?
they do have some issues on their side of it. When we initially looked at the project and starting the project, we did talk to them, asked if they were interested in doing a joint project, but at that time they weren't. So whether they decide to in the future, it's up to them. And then I see Mike's pulling up on the screen again, showing kind of from an aerial view the Linden Tech property and where we accessed from the back end of that. And then you can kind of see that the brown area. But basically, that's the pad area that they'd created. So now they've got a little trail you can walk down, have a little pad seating area, and then they can kind of look down the stream or creek from there. And then you can see the town line as the dotted line, as you add it right on the left. So that's
Okay.
the break between Brighton West that goes into Corbett's Glen Park. And then obviously then the Penfield portion.
So we really didn't go up to the town of Brighton then?
Since they didn't have interest in joining us, we kind of started right where we needed to. So
Okay.
that other area wasn't in a bad condition, so we started, kind of right at the end of that. That's the discharge where the Linden Tech ponds come out. So they've got pipe and end sections right there. So we started right at that point. If that had been a joint project, we would have continued on through. comments, questions? Okay. So moving on to committee discussion item number 2, so stream cleaning updates. Mr. Director of Public Works, would you like to update us on where we are?
So we finished up the Gloria Drive project last week, and now we're switched over to the Marshner Road one. We had a little hiccup with gaining access to the original spot we wanted to. Since then, we have gained the access we want, so we'll be starting probably now, like end of this week or beginning of next. So that's where we're at on that one. We do have a spot on Jackson Extension that we've been talking about. We cleaned a couple years ago. It's got some vegetation growth coming back in. So we're going to send a crew up there this week or beginning of next and clean all that out by hand and get that back so that water flows good up through there. That's all we're at.
And I think we've got a couple other permits of spots we've got, and hopefully, given past winters or mild winters, we can continue on with some other drainage projects, right on through the winter and keep going on those.
Yep.
And this might be a good time for a little PSA, as you talked about debris in the streams and everything else, is we're in the fall season. People, please keep your catch basins clean. Please don't dump your leaves in gutters or streams. Obviously, they all create blockages downstream for us and for your own community, so please bag them up. I saw Penfield leaf driving around today, $98. You can get your leaves taken away, composted. I know they work with local farmers to then put the leaves on the fields and, repurpose them. So that's my public service announcement or quick infomercial is please don't dump your leaves in the creeks and streams and
Hope they'll float away.
and hope they float away. They'll just float downstream and block your drainage somewhere else and then create an issue, so.
Do we know the houses, the addresses that is applicable to? Could we send a postcard to those, or do we not know which houses?
I mean, they're
Not
here, there, and
necessarily.
everywhere.
Okay.
Some,
It's
not on purpose. I know we do gutter cleanings every year, so it's not a current practice, but in past developments, 80s, 90s, they would pour a concrete gutter in the backyard of neighborhoods. We've got people that dump grass clippings in them, and then every year we got to go out and clean out the gutters, and people wonder why the drainage doesn't work, and meanwhile, they've thrown sticks and debris and grass clippings and leaves and other stuff, in the gutter that plugged them up, or we get a heavy rain next week and there's leaves covering the catch basins and people wonder why the road's flooded or it's ponded. Again, we appreciate you going out there with a rake for a few minutes and kind of cleaning off your catch basin and keeping it open. Yes, DPW will come out if need be, but, if people can do a little bit in their own neighborhood to keep drainage flowing, all the better for everyone else.
Mark, if I could add too, that, I think as we all know here, but again, in that sort of PSA mode, just want to remind people that everything that goes into a storm drain on a street eventually drains to the lake. So this is kind of part of what a watershed is all about, that this is all connected. It doesn't just end at the end of your driveway
Or
where your
more
storm
immediately,
drain
the
is.
pond that's behind your house, or,
Right.
people think that it goes off, and sanitary sewer, yes, you flush the toilet, that goes off and gets treated. Stormwater, sheet flows off your driveway, goes into the catch basin, and may end up in the creek next to your house, the pond down the street, so it doesn't go that far, and I think people think that it goes off magically somewhere and gets treated. So we've talked before about grass clippings and fertilizers and oils and other stuff that goes off. Please understand that's probably the same creek and pond that your kid's playing in that your fertilizer's going into, and, what creates the algae blooms and has issues with the lakefront and the beaches in the summertime. Any questions on stream cleaning? Did want to share, and I know we shared last time briefly with this committee about storm and sanitary as-built mapping. So as part of, we're in what's called an MS4, so a municipal stormwater separate sewer system. Basically, it's a designation by the DEC that we are responsible for stormwater within the town of Penfield. So they've kind of deputized us to take over, make sure we monitor construction sites, make sure we, review all new projects. So as part of that, in the latest iteration just came out this year, we've got a new mandate that within 5 years, we map all of our storm sewers in town. So we've got all of it now. Basically, it's a pretty picture now. So we've got it from, some are as-built, some are rubber sheeted, traced from the past, some are handheld GPS units, some is, what we knew best. So thank you to the town board and ARPA funds. They've allocated money this year going towards mapping of that. So we're looking to use that money to map both storm and sanitary. So as Mike's pulling up a map, just as we were talking about, Marchner Road, you can see the mapping we have shows our storm sewers, shows locations. They're probably within a few feet of where they are, but we don't have any Z elevation. We don't have rims and inverts on it. So we've got Costich Engineering as our surveyor consultant for the year. So we'll be working with them to go out and actually do survey grade shots of rim and invert of every structure, look at the size of pipe, look at the condition of the pipe, look at, what's going on with it. From that, now we've got survey grade, so if it gets lost or buried, it's buried in a snowstorm, you can go right out to where that is, find it. We can also do, evaluations of hydrology later on, looking at, are we starting to reach our capacity limits for sanitary sewers? So you can do studies on that. You can look at, size of the storm sewers. So this will be a huge, advantage to us, going forward to have this infrastructure mapped to that level. So they'll be working with us, this year and then probably every year for the next 5 to get that done. So we'll allocate some money to do that, but it's, that next level of the MS4 program that we're required to do. So thankfully to the, thanks to the town board, they've kind of given us a good kickstart with some ARPA funds to do that, and then I'll be coming back every year asking for more money in our annual budget to kind of keep up with that until we're done and have it all mapped. But it'll be wonderful once it's all done and completed.
I assume all towns are required to do that.
Yes. Yep.
MS4s, all MS4s.
All of them.
Yeah, all MS4. So in 5 years sounds like a long time down the road, but
The amount of pipe you have.
it's not, and it's going to be costly to do that. We've pursued some grant funding, but as you can imagine, every town's doing the same thing. So if they're under the same requirements we are, it's not going to be easy to get grant funding for it. So thankfully, the board's allocated money to that. And then as we see kind of how this year goes, how far we get, how much mapping we get done, then that'll adjust how much, of an ask we have, in the following years to come along to get that done.
So as part of the regulation, the town's required to pick up inverts?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Has the town thought about, and maybe you guys already have invested in a GPS device?
We do, and that's in
Okay.
our budget this year, and the board
Okay.
just approved that as well. So we've got our own.
Great.
We do our own mapping here and there. As you know, staffing hours to go out and map an entire town is going to take days and days and weeks and months to do that. We just don't have the staffing to do all of that. We can do small infill stuff we've done and help people look at their drainage in their backyard and do survey shots. But yeah, we did put in for a survey grade GPS unit this year. The board did approve that in our budget. So once we get into January, we'll, get that piece of equipment.
You'll never not use it.
No, we'll put it to good use. We just don't have the man and women power to be out there,
No.
dedicate the months that are going to be needed to map this out. So we're, leveraging the help of a survey consultant, and then obviously we'll supplement with our own
Yep.
staffing on that. So, yeah, so the MS4 requirements is for storm sewers. We're expanding that, figuring you're on the street already, why not pick up storm and sanitary? So we'll be working with our sewer department. There'll be partners in it going out there helping pop manholes and flushing basins as needed to help them collect that data, and then also do a conditions assessment at the same time. So as they're out there, let's look at the pipes, let's look at the catch basins, let's look at the manholes. Are they starting to deteriorate? And then from that, you can start to create a database of, what work we need to do, where we need to slip line. So, the board has allocated money to slip lining, older sewers and everything else. So,
No, it'll be really helpful. It'll help you also look for resilience issues, where you might have some bottlenecks.
yeah, as we look at sizes and go, geez, how did we jump from this or what happened here? Maybe we can replace a section and then, gain more capacity back, or, find something that, wasn't right out there. So, yeah, we're excited to
Yeah, it's cool.
get that data and get that information back. Any questions about mapping? No? So as we talk and jumping down into the Stormwater Coalition, so as we talk about the stormwater permit update, we've got milestones every 6 months that we've kind of had to follow along. So I think our first one was July 1st. We had to basically acknowledge that we're do a new NOI, so a new notice of intent that we are going to follow the new policies, adopt that. If we don't adopt that, then we're out of compliance, so we did that. The next was in September. I think it was October 1st. We had to meet our next deadline of showing how we're progressing along. We've submitted that stuff in. Now we've got a new deadline of January and a next step of things that we've got to comply with along the way. So part of that showing that we're starting to do our mapping, how we're handling our inspections. There's new things and new requirements that are coming out in this new permit. We've got to start looking at catch basin cleanings. We've got to document, cleaning those out, and I think we've got a new Vector over there to clean out basins, so that's falling under that. We've got to inspect those, so many per 5 years, inspect, clean, document, so more work for Bob and the crews.
Mark, how often,
No,
sorry.
no.
How often did you say we have to turn in these reports?
Right now, we're on a 6-month
Okay, 6 months, okay.
cycle just in this first year, and then I think it's annual after that. So normally we have to do an annual report, and for whatever reason, it always ended in March, and then you had to have your report done into the county by May, so it could be submitted by June.
Okay.
Why the calendar year started in March, nobody knows.
It's my
So-
birthday.
Well, that must have been it. Now, thankfully, they've made it a real calendar year, so we didn't do an annual report last year. So now it ends December 31st. Then starting the year, then we can do, I think at April 15th, almost following tax season, we do our annual report. So we report on what we did in the last year. We talked about, and this is a great example, this committee is, what did we do for public education? What did we do for communication? What did we do, in the year, how many catch basins did we clean? How many parking lots did we sweep? We take, how many outfalls did we inspect? Pond inspections and everything else. So we've got to do an inventory all year long of how many different things did we do to, meet those requirements. We do that, and then, that's posted on our website annually. So there was no 2024 permit, or no 2024 report, because the permit was new. So we'll have a 2025 report that'll go out, and that's following the same as everybody else, or every other MS4 will be doing the same thing. Any questions on stormwater stuff? I have no updates from the state. I have no old business. The one item of new business, Linda prepared our tentative calendar for next year. I don't know if anybody took a look at that, but if anybody had any comments on that or issues, concerns. I think it pretty much follows what we've done in the past for kind of spring and fall. We take the summer off and then have the 2 winter dates, and then do our, again, back to looking at doing a June tour around town. If that's okay with everybody, we'll
Field trip's my favorite.
move ahead with the field trip. Anybody else have any new business items to share today? Okay. So given that, our next meeting of the committee will be February 4th. So I'd like to thank everybody for watching at home, and thank everybody for,
When will we be asked to be on next year's committee?
oh, that's right now.
I was going to say, if you adjourn the meeting, you haven't asked.
So does everybody still want to continue to serve on the committee?
Yep.
Okay.
It's a lot of work, but it's worth it.
So we'll pass that on to the town board. So as this committee is an annual renewal, that'll be up for the board's consideration in the organizational meeting. But I haven't heard any different, but thank you all for offering to serve once again.
With pleasure.
So with that, we'll adjourn this meeting at 4:31 PM. Thanks, committee members, thanks, staff, and thank you, PCTV.